Guys, welcome to another episode of the Dr. Akash Show. Now, today I want to talk about something incredibly important for all human beings in all walks of life, at all stages of life. And that, my friends, is discipline. Now, I want to dive deep into what discipline is, and we're going to talk about rituals and routines that you can develop to start building your discipline, making you more resilient, and building a more robust version of yourself. So let's get into it. Discipline. So the definition of discipline, the way we're using it, is the ability to control one's feelings and overcome one's weaknesses. And it's also the ability to pursue what one thinks is right, despite the temptation to abandon it. Now, that definition tells us a whole lot of information, right? And I think right there in the definition is probably one of the key things about discipline, which is the ability to control or overcome your feelings to do what you know you need to do to stick to the program and to move forward. But before we get into tips and tricks on discipline, let's discuss a little bit about why it's important. A lot of us hear about discipline these days, and a lot of us maybe throw this term around, but why is discipline important? Well, a good way to address this is to look at what happens when you're not disciplined, right? And the society we live in makes it too easy to become undisciplined, because we're almost ingrained and taught and trained in our culture that immediate gratification is a good thing. We're almost encouraged to pursue immediate gratification. For example, if you look at marketing today, right? Everywhere you turn, be it on social media, or if you turn on the TV, if you're driving down the street and you look at billboards, or you look at different retail shops, whatever the case may be, there's tons of marketing dollars being put towards pushing you towards buying something right now, right? Because ultimately, look at all the marketing you're surrounded by. The general feeling that you're being sold on is that, hey, if you buy this thing, you're going to be happy. If you buy this thing, you're going to feel better. You're going to feel like you belong. You're going to feel superior, or whatever the case may be. And that combined with the fact that typically marketing is also positioned to discuss buying this thing now. Don't wait, don't save up for it. Buy it on credit, no money down today, et cetera, right? And all these things are pushing you to have immediate gratification, to buy this thing, and you'll be better. You'll feel better. You'll just become a better person. What I've seen with my clients as well as myself, after, of course, falling for the marketing traps and going down this pathway, you're not ultimately happier, right? You might feel that little hit of dopamine for about 1 to 3 months. That typically wears off with almost any large purchase, and then you're back to the grinding board. You're back seeking another distraction. You're back being receptive to more marketing so you can go buy the next thing to get that dopamine hit. And if you follow this path down, and we've all seen people like this, maybe some people watching this are people like this, you may acquire a bunch of cool stuff, which is awesome. But then you're ultimately left with this kind of void because you're not fixing yourself. You're not really disciplining yourself in a way where you're growing, you're creating a new skill set, and you're becoming a more resilient human being. You're becoming more robust. You're not doing any of that. You're basically taking the easy way out, right? And the other challenge with this is we end up being so distracted by these purchases and by these marketing pushes that you end up buying things you don't necessarily want to impress people you don't necessarily like. There's a great line like that in the movie Fight Club, and it's spot on, right? Look around you, look at your stuff, take an inventory today, and truly, deeply, authentically ask yourself, how much of this stuff is stuff you really want, or how much of it have you been convinced to purchase to impress people you don't necessarily care about or know or like? And that's the real problem, right? So all that time, money, energy, focus put towards all those distractions and purchases could be put towards your own self-discipline. Right? And so those problems, you can tell, if you follow that down the pathway, those problems are going to lead to, a serious financial catastrophe of some sort, because you're ultimately keeping up with the Joneses. You may acquire a lot of stuff, but you still feel the same. And ultimately, time is going to go by. You're going to waste money. You're going to waste focus. You're going to waste energy. And all that time and all those resources you put into that kind of a pathway, you cannot get back. And you're going to be farther down the path, starting at a later point, to actually become more disciplined, to pursue which you fundamentally and authentically and genuinely have been wanting to pursue. Now, what can we do about this, right? So if we're not disciplined and we just kind of fall towards any sort of marketing push or any sort of distraction that comes our way, and we lose all the things we just talked about, there's got to be a better way to fight that, right? To fight that overall kind of attraction and temptation to that path. And ultimately, the question you have to ask yourself is why? Once you understand why being disciplined is advantageous to you as a human being in your life, it becomes a lot easier to stay disciplined. So why is discipline important? Well, as a healthcare provider and as a doctor, I can tell you there are obvious benefits to maintaining discipline when it comes to diet, nutrition, and exercise, right? The obvious benefits are physical. Obviously, you're going to put yourself in a better place physically, which can be objectively measured with your laboratory results. Obviously, you're going to carry yourself with less weight overall because you're less likely to be obese and less likely to have bad fats like visceral fat and subcutaneous fat, etc. And you're less likely to have one of these disease states that end up accelerating aging and end up causing higher rates of mortality fall upon you. You may still live to be a certain, ripe old age, but the quality of your life will be diminished and your health span will be affected negatively. But what people don't really think about, and what's very important to understand, is the mental benefits of being disciplined. And the mental benefits of being disciplined far outweigh any sort of physical benefit whatsoever. Because everything starts with your mindset and your mentality, and that creates your entire life. So, speaking from personal experience and in the many clients that I've helped, when we start to incorporate disciplined structure into their lives, they become different human beings. They become different types of men. They become men that develop a new sense of self-respect, which is then literally felt by everybody around them. And that self-respect then breeds respect from the people in their circles, right? So if you're the kind of person where maybe you're struggling to get respect in your household, you're not leading your family the way you wish you were or the way you want to, despite your multiple efforts, if you're a father and your children are not looking up to you the way that you wish they would, a lot of that may come down and most likely comes down to some form of a lack of discipline. A lack of discipline can show up in many ways. There's the very obvious ways of, hey, I just kind of eat whatever's put in front of me, or I celebrate a weekend every weekend by eating something very nasty, for example, or drinking heavily on weekends, or drinking heavily every day and just kind of mustering through the next day, right? We're going to talk about things you can do that are free or inexpensive, practical, and you can apply these tips and tricks at the end of this video today to start building your discipline muscle. Because discipline, like everything else, is a muscle. The more you use it, the more you develop it, the more easier it is to become a habit, the quicker you start to make positive changes in your life. But understand the reason why you need discipline, right? It all comes down to the psychological effect on yourself. If you tell yourself that you are a certain kind of man, but the person looking in the mirror is a completely different figure of what you imagined in your mind, that is a straight up lack of discipline. And as a doctor, I can tell you, you're going to have serious physical consequences down the road, but you're also going to have serious psychological and potential mental consequences down the road, which are arguably greater than any sort of physical impediment. Because if you're not able to function at a high level, being psychologically resilient and strong and robust, everything else is secondary. So let's talk a little bit about that. What can you do to really build your self-discipline? Let's say you just don't know where to start. You don't really know how to begin the process. You're not really clear on why everybody's talking about discipline. Where do you start and how do you start? Ultimately, think about it like this. You and I have 24 hours in the day. We have the exact same amount of time in every single day. How we choose to spend that time will help you become the kind of person you're going to become. The person you are today is a direct result of the decisions you've made in the last 6 to 12 months of your life. The person you can become in the next 6 to 12 months of your life, in the next year, will be a direct result of the choices and consequences that you choose to make today. So think big picture here and understand another definition of discipline, right, is the ability to hold off on doing something or want or acting on something that you want now for something that you want down the road. So in 6 to 12 months from today, if you want to be that man that you respect, if you want to become the person that now has a higher level of self-respect, leading to self-confidence and self-esteem, but also leading to the people in your circle now beginning to respect you because they are noticing the change in you secondary to your actions, those actions need to start the second this video stops. Okay, so let's get into it. What are some rituals and routines that you can start today to help you become a more disciplined human being? Number one, wake up time. The time you choose to wake up in the day will be very difficult for you, or should be very difficult for you, but it will also increase the amount of time that you have to be productive in your day. So typically I tell my clients and my patients to start their days around 5 to 5:30 in the morning. Some of my clients absolutely start earlier than that. Most don't start later than that, but 5 to 5:30, because in most people's work situations, we typically start our work days 8 to 9 a.m., right? So if you're waking up at 5 a.m., you're gaining that dead time. What do I mean by dead time? That's time that the rest of the world is basically asleep or dead, right? And you can take that time to help yourself kind of grow and start building yourself before the day begins. You put yourself in the right mindset. So a sharp wake up time of 5 to 5:30 a.m. will be very difficult, but you will start your day keeping a promise to yourself, and that will further kind of encourage you to stay disciplined. Number one. Number two, diet and nutrition. If you're not tracking your diet and you're not tracking your nutrition with some sort of an app or some other way, there is no way you're disciplined about your diet. No matter how healthy you think you're eating, there's no way you're disciplined about it. So start tracking that immediately. And don't even change your diet. Just track what you normally eat with the calories and the macronutrients and get an understanding of where you're at. Number three, physical fitness. It doesn't matter how active you are or are not. When you start waking up at that 5 to 5:30 in the morning, you're going to buy yourself minutes or hours of the day that you didn't have before. Now, you don't have to be overly physically active if that doesn't feel right for you, if that's not where you're at, but you do need to do something. So if you can get yourself up at 5 to 5:30, promise number one kept. Right? You've been disciplined enough to wake up. Now you just go walk around the block as you're starting to wake up. Maybe that's where you start. Promise number two kept, right? Then you start your day and you track your nutrition. Promise number three kept, right? Those three things, automatically, you're starting to build your own discipline. Ultimately, what you'll begin to understand is the key to your success in this longevity space, the key to your success with staying and feeling younger for a longer period of time, the key to your success with improving your health span, not just your lifespan, comes down to discipline, right? If you're disciplined enough to eat clean, if you're disciplined enough to resist the temptation of that alcohol, that cookie, blowing off that workout, whatever the case may be, you're now taking yourself one step closer to being a more healthier, optimized version of you, and a one step away from being that other person, right? That negative 2.0 version of yourself, where you have to dig yourself out of a hole. All these small things put together over time are going to help you become a greater, more optimized version of yourself. And everything else we're going to talk about, from hormone replacement therapy to certain supplements, etc., are all intended to just kind of augment and support your foundational discipline. So ultimately, getting that discipline under control is the most important thing you can do. Just start today. Do me a couple favors in summary. Number one, start waking up between 5 to 5:30 a.m. your time. No excuses. It doesn't matter what time the kids wake up. It doesn't matter what time you went to bed. Just wake up at 5 to 5:30. Number two, track your nutrition and your diet daily. Use a simple app. MyFitnessPal is a great free app. You can plug everything in there and you can see exactly what you're consuming. Number three, physical activity. If you're in a sedentary job, most importantly, you can absolutely get up and walk around the office. You can start your day walking around the block before you even get to work. Better than that, though, once we get you advanced beyond that point, we need to start getting into the gym. We need to start doing some serious physical activity, which we'll talk about later. And finally, number 4, and most important, take it day by day. Don't put this massive goal in front of you of, oh my gosh, I got to wake up at 5 a.m. every single day for the next year. Don't do that to yourself. You're going to create a situation where you're just going to automatically fail. Just take it a day at a time. Today, my goal is to wake up at 5 a.m., walk around the block once, and track my breakfast, lunch, and dinner and snacks. That's it. And then tomorrow, you're going to do the exact same thing just for that day. Track everything just for a day at a time. Pursue these discipline type activities one day at a time, and just let the wins stack upon each other. And before you know it, you're going to have been sticking to, these disciplined types of activities, and you're going to have a streak going. And eventually, when that streak becomes 2 to 3 to 4 weeks, it becomes a habit. And now your lifestyle has changed. Ultimately, when you do this, in the course of 6 to 12 months, with other changes we'll talk about, you're going to be a different person. You're going to become a different person. It's impossible to not. You're inevitably going to improve the person that you are by taking these small daily steps. By the way, guys, everything I've told you today is free. It's not even inexpensive. It's straight up free, right? You can walk around the block. You can wake up at a certain time. You have a free app on the phone that you already have. These are free things that you can do today to start getting disciplined. And then finally, when you wake up, or when it's 5 a.m. and it's warm under those covers and you don't want to get up because it's cold, immediately in that moment, you need to program yourself to start thinking about the after effect. And what I mean is, think about how you're going to feel after you've gotten up and after you've taken that walk around the block or after you've had that gym session. Think about how you're going to feel when you wake up at 5 a.m. How are you going to feel at 6 a.m. when you've done these things already and you're starting the day? Versus how you're going to feel at 6 a.m. if you're just fumbling around the bed, getting just, a few more minutes of horrible sleep, right? And when you start to program your mind to think about the reward being how much better you're going to feel if you pursue these activities, you are going to be able to get out of bed so quickly and pursue these activities so quickly before you can convince yourself not to. So think about the reward. Think about how you're going to feel after you've pursued these activities, and that will encourage you to actually begin. Do those 3 things for me starting today. So discipline, guys, very important. This is just a quick kind of summary, a quick discussion, but your rituals and routines you're going to start after this video is done is you're going to wake up between 5 to 5:30 in the morning, no matter what. If you're struggling, think about how good you're going to feel at 6 a.m. because you did wake up. Think about how your self-esteem is going to go up. Your self-confidence is going to go up because you did what you told yourself you were going to do. Number 2, you're going to track your nutrition throughout the course of the day just to get an idea of where you're at, regardless of how healthy you think you're eating. And finally, number 3, I want you to get physically active. Walk around the block, go to the gym. Give me 5 minutes if you're starting at 0. Give me an hour if you're starting at 45 minutes. You can do something today and you can improve today. Do those 3 things, track all of that, and understand. Follow this one day at a time. Just do it a day at a time. Wake up that day and say, hey, today I'm just going to do these 3 things. I don't know what's going to happen tomorrow. And the next day, do the same thing. And the next day, and the next day. Those are your rituals and routines, which are ultimately going to make you a very resilient person. Now, we define resilience as basically the ability to handle difficult situations as they come your way. So think about this. If you have a life stressor, a personal stressor, a professional stressor, whatever the case may be, if you have developed these simple things we've talked about today, you're going to be physically in a better place and mentally in a better place to cope with stress. If you can cope better with stress mentally and physically, you can conquer the problem, you can solve the problem, and you can move forward. Ultimately, doing all that will make you a much more robust human being. So guys, I hope this was a helpful episode for you. Now remember, the best time to start something was yesterday. The second best time is today. Don't look back tomorrow with regret. Take one step today to get yourself closer to being optimized and unbreakable. Thanks for watching.